IVM.
Hello everybody, welcome to the 11th episode of the Sponge Podcast. I am sitting down with Ambi Parameswaran to discuss his book Sponge, Leadership Lessons I Learned from My Clients. Today we're going to talk about Chapter 11, Sorry, Please Leave. Hey Ambi.
Hi Amit.
So I think, let's just dive first right into the main story that you have in this chapter, right?
Yeah. So this is a story going back, many years. There was an enterprising hotel group based in Kochi, which is part called the Casino Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And the second generation, when they took over the Casino Hotel, they decided to do something different. And Jose Dominic was the guy, the eldest of the children of the founder, who decided to do a kind of outrageous bid to get a long-term contract to run a holiday resort in a remote island called the Bangaram Island.
Okay.
The Bangaram Island is, difficult to get there. It's part of the collection of islands in the Lakshadweep.
Okay.
So, and they outbid a lot of other, big companies which bid for it. And actually they went out on a kind of a limb to, take a contract on that. And a lot of people said they may not be able to succeed. So to get there, it's pretty tough, right? To get to this... to the Bangaram Island, you'll have to fly to Kochi, say you're coming from Mumbai or Delhi,
Okay.
and then you take a flight to Agatti in Lakshadweep,
Okay.
and then from Agatti you have to take a 1.5 hour boat ride to Bangaram Island.
Okay.
And so it's a pretty
that's
difficult place
Yeah.
That actually became very famous because I think Rajiv Gandhi went on a holiday somewhere there and he saved
Oh, really? Okay.
some dolphins or something like that. So it became, but this is before all that.
Right.
So this story goes back to they took over the hotel and in an interesting, I think, leap of faith, Jose Dominic and team said, look, we're going to build this into India's first eco-friendly tourist resort.
Interesting. Okay. So even this was in the mid-80s?
Yeah. This was early 80s, I think. Not even mid-80s, early 80s, 81, 82, 83. That time, right? And they said, look, we're going to build it as eco-friendly resort. So in a sense, he and his team created probably India's first eco-hotel.
Okay.
So it's easy to say that. But, eco-hotel is, there are probably about 30, 40 cottages. There is no air conditioning.
Okay.
All the rooms are open to think. They also said no television in the rooms.
Okay.
They said no aerated soft drinks.
Okay.
And
No aerated soft drinks?
No aerated soft drinks. They said no aerated soft drinks. Only natural stuff.
So no Diet Coke?
No Diet Coke, sorry.
Okay.
No Diet Coke.
I guess it's out for me.
No Diet Pepsi. And most of the stuff, of course, not everything grows there. A lot of stuff which is fed to the guests is the fresh catch from the sea, etc.
Right.
So as far as possible, least carbon footprint kind of stuff, right? The cottages the use of electricity was pretty low because they didn't have elevators and, escalators and stuff like that. And they pitched it at a pretty, so it's difficult to get there, right? So they said, look, if someone is going to come all the way to the Bangaram Island, he should be probably able to spend $200 per room night. Right. So you're probably going to be a guy who flies from somewhere abroad, stays in the Oberoi in Bombay, and then, fly down to Kochi and then fly to Agatti and things. So they pitched it very high. So this story is, let me tell the story and then tell you, how they marketed it. So the story is, early days, within, I think, a year or two of their starting of this thing, and the hotel was not running full. It was not running to full capacity. And they got this two families which had flown down from Mumbai.
Okay.
I think two couples with 3 or 4 kids. It was a great adventure for them. They flew down, took a boat, went to Bangaram Island. The kids all went into the room and then they started screaming, saying there is no TV, and there is no AC. And they said, we want Coke, there's no Coke. So they're making a lot of noise. And they came out and, complained to the resort manager. And the story goes that Jose Dominic was there at the resort and he met them and he said, look, this is an eco thing. I'm sorry, we can't provide television in your rooms. We can't give you aerated soft drinks. We try and keep things as natural as we can. And these people kept making a lot of noise. So finally, I think he took a call and he said, look, I'm sorry this has happened to you, but we can't keep you here.
Right.
So I will arrange for you to fly back to Mumbai. So the next boat is leaving in about 2 hours' time. We'll take you to Agati and then you can fly back and we'll give you a full refund, complete refund. So they got the money back, not only for their hotel, but they also got the money they paid for the airfare. Now, this was a huge move for a fledgling hotel. I mean, he could have easily fallen at their feet and said, look, in the next boat, I'll get you a TV. I'll get some bottles of soft drink from the nearby island. Please don't get angry. Please stay, etc., etc. But I think somewhere he realized that his vision of building a eco-friendly hotel means he has to stick to these things.
Right.
And he can't buckle, in the first sign of resistance. And he sent them back. He paid them the full money. He sent them back. So our agency was handling the business out of our Cochin office. And I heard this story from our manager and many years ago, right? And it kind of stayed with me. I said, look, it's an amazing leap of faith, an amazing commitment to what you stand for, what you believe in.
Right.
Sure enough, I mean, Casino Group made Bangaram into a success. Based on the success of Bangaram, they went and built a whole series of eco-friendly hotels in Kerala, backwaters of Kerala, riverside Kerala. All these are really eco-friendly hotels.
Right.
And built a fairly credible business, out of all this. But I think it started with a commitment saying, look, I have a vision for my business.
Right.
I will live by that vision. If there are some objections which I face along the way, I will not buckle down. I will not give up on my vision. So I think that was a great lesson we learned. And we said, look, this is fantastic. I mean, he had taken a huge loan and every single room which went empty was a loss for him. Mm-hmm. But he said, no, I mean, I'm not going to fall prey to this.
That's interesting. I mean, at that point in time, even the idea of an eco-friendly hotel, I can't imagine that people in India were that environmentally conscious then. Even now, I feel like people are not as environmentally conscious as you would hope that they would be. But back then, I would think that this would be a tough sell, right, in that sense?
Yeah, so I think, after this kind of an experience, he realized that he needs to go after the global tourists. So... Right. I think the major focus was on the global tourist thing. Though we did a little bit of advertising, a lot of work was done in terms of bringing in international travel writers to come and experience Bangaram themselves. And that got it going. National Geographic wrote about it, Financial Times wrote about it, all these Wall Street Journal wrote about it. All these people wrote about it. And then that gave him the momentum that he could then go on to build a very successful, eco thing. Because this, in the early 80s, late 80s, this was way ahead of its time for India.
Yeah.
And you're not cheap. You're charging $250 per room night. And his logic was that. He said, look, if they're paying $250 for Taj Mahal Palace Hotel in Bombay and, Oberoi in Bombay, why can't they pay $250? Because, I'm going to give them great experience. So he kind of pivoted the business to entirely international. And that turned out to be a very smart move. And some years later, he didn't renew his contract for Bangaram. And, Casino Group doesn't run Bangaram anymore.
Interesting.
But they do run a whole lot of other eco properties around Kerala. And I think they're also looking at properties outside Kerala now. Yeah.
So when I used to run a software business, before I started this, I used to run a software business. One of the things one of our aphorisms, if you will, used to be you need to know when to fire a client. Right? So in this case, I feel like in this case, this is what he was doing to an extent, right? He was telling the guests that you are not fitting into our vision of what we want to do. It's time for you to, pack your bags and leave.
Yeah. So, and I think he also... probably said that, look, I will give you back whatever money you paid. And I'm sorry, So even when you fire a client, you got to be a bit polite. So that's what he did, and he was very polite with them. And he said, look, I'll give you your money back. I'm sorry, you leave. See, sometimes the bigger challenge is that this client, if they had continued to stay and they kept complaining for the next 7 days, they will pollute the atmosphere completely. So you may have another 10 other families living there who are quite happy enjoying this whole thing.
Right.
But these two bunch of people can pollute the atmosphere. They can bring down the morale of your staff.
Yeah.
Exactly what happens in, say, advertising or software. They can bring down the morale of the staff. They can spread, bad word of mouth among the people who are staying there. And so it's probably better to fire a client before he pollutes your system.
Yeah, absolutely.
So which is what I think he did. In any service industry, you have a client, you work with a client for one of probably three reasons, right? One is, of course, monetary gain.
Yes.
The other is what you can learn and understand the business, and third is fame, right?
Right.
So it's money, fame, or name, right?
Right.
But sometimes you cannot,
Is that
go
the
below.
thing? Money, fame, or name, or did you just make that up right now?
I just made that up.
Yeah, it sounded pretty nice.
No, but the point is, you have to make sure that I won't go below a particular level.
Right.
Right. Just because someone pays me a lot of money, I cannot buckle and do the kind of work which I would.
So actually that brings me to this question, right? I mean, like, can you give some examples of places where in the course of your time with the advertising space, right, where you have fired clients for various reasons, or what kind of reasons would you fire a client for?
Okay. I mean, you don't, firing is tough, right?
Okay.
So let me give an example where you don't take on a client.
Okay.
Right. So we got a client, I think in Hyderabad, who called us for a meeting, and we went and met the client, and he said, I can give you this amount of business. But the catch is that you have to give back so much back to us, in a
The
bag.
infamous LIC style.
Yeah, a bag, the bag in a bag, right?
Yes.
So we said, we can't do it. I'm sorry. But he said, no, you come back, 10 days later, talk to your, board, or talk to your, management or whatever, and come back. So I said, look, I will talk to them, but the answer is no, but I will come back. Okay. So I went back 2 weeks later and I said, look, sorry, sir, thank you very much for considering us above everyone else, but I can't give you anything back. So he said, well, I'm sorry. If you had agreed to give thing back, we would have given you the whole business, but since you're not giving anything back, we'll give you half the business we would have otherwise given you. So I said, I'm okay, but I'll not give anything back. He said, no, it's okay. Don't give anything back. So finally we got the business, and that business stayed for almost 5 years, and we were not giving a rupee back.
That's interesting. I don't really understand that mechanics, why they would I understand why they're trying to get money back from you, right?
Yeah.
Because it's probably some sort of a company with multiple stakeholders. One of them wants to get some money directly in the pocket. I understand that.
Yeah.
What changes their mind to decide that they want to do half with you and half outside of you, right?
I suppose they found someone else who's willing to give a lot more back. So,
okay.
So they said, look, I work with these guys. These guys will do good work. But they'll not give any money back. But my Malik wants so much money back, so I'll give half the work to someone else who will give a lot of money back. And therefore, so that is one. That is one thing. The other thing, sometimes when you work with a client and you find that they are sapping the energy of the team by repeat, iterations, etc., you have to blow the whistle.
Yeah.
And you have to take the matter up to people higher up in the organization and say, look, this is sapping the team, boss. This we cannot continue.
Right.
And I've done that a couple of times, and a lot of times the client says, sorry, we didn't know it was happening this way, but we will make some changes internally. Can you also make some changes in your systems? Yeah, we'll make changes, but this cannot go on. We cannot keep working till midnight every night, continuously. This is just not going to get us, So you've gone very close to, telling a client, thank you very much,
Yeah.
And you have to do that. And because you have to stick to some principles which you are building your company by. And you allow every customer to come and dilute it, and tomorrow you'll be just water. Right?
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing about, the whole concept of, discover your true north.
Right.
Which is a book which I've talked about in this chapter written by Bill George. It's a great thing. And he says that whether it's a company or an individual, just as a compass points towards a magnetic, north, right? Your true north pulls you towards the purpose of your leadership.
Right.
When you follow your internal compass, your leadership, will be authentic. And that's critical. That's true of any company, that what is your true north? What makes you tick?
I also actually I really like the other thing in the chapter you mentioned. You're talking about the golden circle, the idea of that, and how the why you do what you do is the reason why people work with you.
Absolutely. So, Simon Sinek, who probably has one of the most popular TED Talks ever, has this concept of start with why. So he says, at the core of what you do is why you do it. The next level is how you do it, and then what do you do?
Right.
So he gives the example of, for example, a company like Apple. It says, "Why do you do it? I want to change the world." Right.
Right.
And then
do you not think that is somewhat
a bit too much? Yeah, but you watch the video. It's it's easy to give any example and and fit any theory and fit Apple to it. But any good company, like you take some of the most respected companies in India. Take for example Amul.
Right.
Why do they do it?
Yeah, that's true.
Because they want to care for the milk growers.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Milk farmers. The whole thing is about dairy farmers. Why do you do it?
Yeah.
We want to do it to help dairy farmers.
Right.
And then you go on to ask the next question, how do you do it? We collect milk, we fresh milk, we pay them right fees, etc. And what do? Well, I make milk, I make packaged milk, I make cheese, I make this, I make that.
Right.
So what he's saying is, don't start with what? Don't start by saying, I make milk products.
Right.
And then say, how do I make milk products? I gather milk from farmers.
Right.
And then why do you do it? Because I care for farmers. It doesn't sound as good as,
So why, how?
Yeah, same thing with the Bangaram Island. So the why is to create an eco-friendly tourist resort.
Right.
That's why. Why am I in existence? To create a new kind of tourist business. That's my existence. Okay. And if something questions that, then you need to stop, right? So this happens even in individual level. And there is another book which I've referred to in this chapter or another chapter, which is a book written by Clayton Christensen on how will you measure your life.
Okay.
Right. Now, Clayton Christensen is a highly respected professor at Harvard, and he's something like 6 feet 6 inches or something like that.
Okay.
And he used to be a basketball player during his school days, and then from high school he went to college, and he had a principle all his life that on Sunday morning he goes to church. Right. So apparently in freshman year or something, he was in the college team and he was told they had to play a very critical match. And that was on a Sunday. So he said, look, I had a moral dilemma. Do I go play the match because I wanted my team to win?
Right.
Or do I say no, I go to church because, that's what I do every Sunday. And he took a call that he will go to church.
Okay.
And the team lost.
That's got to be interesting.
And then he says, look, but, I had to do it. Because that's my, that's what I am.
Right.
That's my genuineness. I'm so genuine. So, I can't fool myself. I go to church when it suits me. When it suits me, I will not go to church. So, similarly, you can't say that, I will run this advertising business as a very clean place where I expect my clients to respect me and I will respect my clients equally. My staff will therefore look at their clients with respect and they'll expect the clients to look at them with respect. And here comes a client who's obnoxious. I don't do anything. What does it leave me with?
Nothing.
Nothing. You become just another...
all the thing that you were talking about just becomes talk.
Exactly. So, which was critical, so that's this whole story about, that, do you have the guts to tell a client, sorry, you can leave?
That's a great note to end this. Because that's the title of the chapter. Sorry, please leave. So everybody, that was we'll be back next week with the next chapter, which is Red, White, and Brown. And with that, let's.
Thank you.
Every week comes a show where 3 people come together to tell you about stuff they like. A movie, a TV show, a book, and other stuff. Tune in every Monday on the IVM Podcast app to IVM Likes. Batman approves this message. Thank you, Batman.
Hey Meghnad, do you know how to citizen?
Hey Shreyas, do you know how to citizen?
Hey Meghnad, do you know how to citizen?
Hey Shreyas, let's just do a podcast about it.
Let's do a podcast about it. A podcast is called How to Citizen. In every episode, we get a new guest and discuss one chapter from the 8th grade civics textbook. Think about it as 3 friends revising before a test. And we go back to school. There's nostalgia, there's trauma, there are lunch breaks, there are favorite teachers, there are horrible teachers, there's everything.
So every Tuesday, we bring in a guest on the podcast and we ask them a very simple question. Do you know how to citizen?
Meghnad, I think the question is, do you know how to citizen?
But Shreyas, I'm asking you this question.